going on, everybody? You are live with Osiris. Welcome to the Author's Lounge. The world is filled with storytellers, and I, along with my guests, are here today in the Author's Lounge to help educate and inspire the young generation of writers and creators. Now, my guests are professionals in publishing, writers from a wide range of formats, and successful entertainers. They will provide beneficial advice on what to do and what not to do on your path to success. So, without further ado, I'll present to you our next guest. Let's go. I must say, it pays to know really good people. And a buddy of mine, she put me in contact with this gentleman here, and I am very much looking forward to being able to like pick his brain and let him share his knowledge with you all. So, without further ado, I present to you a man who is not only an entrepreneur but has worked on small business books in general, and also as an author of science fiction. And there's more extensive information that he can provide, but I'd rather him say it. So without further ado, I present to you Mr. Mike Van Horn. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, sir.
Good afternoon. I'm very pleased to be here.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for your time. So, as I mentioned in that short bio, that you're an entrepreneur. You've written business books. You also written science fiction. But I want to pivot. I've had people on the show who've talked about fiction, and I'll get to that with you soon. But I want to really focus first on just your business mindset. Like, what actually drove you to saying, you know what, I have so much knowledge as a businessman. I should write books about that. Well, what got you into that headspace, sir?
Well, my business has always been working with owners of small businesses to advise them how to grow. My slogan is grow your business without driving yourself crazy. And I've written a
Yeah.
book by that title. And so in the process of this, I would I would be leading workshops and discussions and problem solving groups. And whenever I did that, I would take notes. I'd write on the whiteboard and I'd photograph it. Somebody be talking, I'd record it. And out of that, I just had all of these notes come up and I started writing workbooks for those. You want me to hold one of them up here? Right there is
Oh,
an
yes, sir.
example. Grow your business without driving yourself crazy. And you notice this little gray bar means it's not quite published yet. But what happened was that every time I would put on a workshop, I would have to create a little workbook for this. This book only has like 40 pages, so it isn't a big thing. But doing this over a period of years, the stack of workbooks just kept piling up. So it wasn't like me sitting and saying, hey, I'm going to write workbooks. It just kind of naturally emerged from what I was doing in my work anyway.
Perfect. So while on the topic, right, about about how you what got you into that space, being a businessman, you I know you're self-published now, but it wasn't always the case for you. You used to be trad published. So what was the biggest difference for you? For those who don't know, trad published is just a shorter way of saying traditionally published. So for you, sir, what was the biggest difference in your experience, being trad published versus being self-published?
Well, there are a couple of things. Number one, speed. When you go through a traditional publisher, can take 1 or 2 or more years for your book to come out. And so it just, life is too short to wait for that as far as I'm concerned. Secondly, I wanted to be able to control the material. Like if I have a book, I wanted to be able to break pieces out of it and put it into a workbook or into a slideshow or something like that. And not have to worry about infringing on the publisher's copyright. And then, of course, there's also the thing that the publisher won't accept every book that you want for publication. So if you want to have a whole series of books and make sure they all get out, then publishing it yourself is really the best way to go.
No, for sure. And I've met plenty of people, right, who've been traditionally published and who are self-published, and almost all of them almost all of them prefer to be self-published because of that very reason, that control and the speed. It's not even as much as like the royalties or the payout or anything. It's almost never really about the money, versus it being about everything else. Like, I just want to be able to have control. I remember I had a buddy of mine who was strat published, who just simply wanted to go and do a book signing event, but they needed to get the permission of the publishing house, and the publishing house denied that they could do it, so they weren't able to bring that book.
Yeah.
And also to have you seen that as well, like in your time where in the past where you maybe wanted to do something with your own book, but you weren't able to given the circumstances?
Well, the big change for me, I wrote one book and it was published and it did fairly well. And then I wanted to write a sequel to it. And they said, no, we're not interested in that. And so basically, I was left to have to do it on my own. And that I've basically done it self publishing ever since then.
I see. And so with that first book, right? Did it? And you say it did pretty well. Did they express to you why they weren't interested in picking it up for a sequel? Did they give you any sort of explanation?
No, they didn't. They looked at my proposal and they said, "Nah, this isn't right for us right now." You know what traditional publishers normally say. I mean, there wasn't.
Right.
They didn't say, "Oh, your writing is lousy. Your first book didn't sell well." Blah de blah. They didn't say any of that. They just didn't want to do the second one.
I see. And then, and was your first one, was it a business book as well?
Yes, it was called Pacific Rim Trade, and I wrote about how small American companies can do business in the Asia Pacific. And it sold pretty well, and it got an award from the American Library Association. And the measure of success for a published book is that you make more money on it than you get in the advance. And so I actually got checks on that for several years. Not that I got rich or anything, but any little bit of money coming in the mail is nice.
No, for sure. It speaks to like the hard work and the idea that people are actually interested in your work, right? So, but you're no stranger to like to business, and so like my other question is when like developing a book series, for example, the one you've written, like I know when it comes to making a book series for fiction books, there's like this idea of, okay, I have this that I can go off of. I have this, but it's like it generally stays within that genre. Like Goosebumps, for example, like the horror stories of Goosebumps, they have that idea of, okay, we're just going to tell little creepy fun stories. But how do you make a book series out of business, since business is so broad? Well, I guess that's the same for other genres as well, but like in particular with business, and there's so many avenues of business. How do you narrow it down to, this is what I'm going to focus on and this is what the series is going to be based on?
Yeah, and that's a good question. Because I was working with small business owners all through this time, I knew what their problems were. And so, I told you my theme, grow your business without driving yourself crazy. And so there's a number of themes that naturally come out of that. Marketing and management, hiring employees, time management, managing your money, all of those things is like if you have a table full of small business owners, they're all going to have all of those problems. And so those became the natural things for me to build the series around.
I see. Then the idea just kind of grew on its own and just it became bigger than what it was.
Yeah. And I mean, there's some parts of it that I just didn't touch because I wasn't an expert in those areas.
Right. And you
Of course, you can
stuck to
always
your truth.
babble and
Like, hey,
complain.
I know what my truth is. I know.
I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah. Oh, go ahead, sir.
I say, I'm not an expert, but you can always baffle them with baloney. But that's not what I want to do.
Oh yeah, no, I'm with you. It's no sense in like going down that rabbit hole. Sticking to something that you know that you're really good at is always, I think, a great benefit in being able to like promote something. And you had mentioned too, that with the small businesses, you knew what their problems were, and so that brings me to this point, right? That I think when it comes to writing, it can be, everyone that's a writer has like their reason for wanting to write. But it sounded like with yours, and correct me if I'm wrong, in the assumption that you wanted to help solve problems. Like your at least with your business books were like a tool to help people problem solve and make their life easier. Is that the right path I'm on headed on?
Yeah, I would say if I kind of look at what I do, there's three things. Number one, I problem solve. Number two, I teach. Number three, I write. So those things have always just kind of come together in whatever I'm doing.
Yes, sir. Okay, so how long have you been writing for? Like, if you had to quantify it.
Many, many years. I guess I started, see, I got started, my first business was running a symposium for government labs on for technical topics, and so they needed to have somebody come in and take all of their technical notes and turn them into readable language. Technical writing. I mean, that's kind of the normal thing to do. And so
Yes, sir.
that's kind of how I got started doing it. So I'll tell you how I got my
And
first book.
it's strong ever since.
Pardon? I'll tell you how I got
Oh
my
no,
first
I
book.
was that's just saying. I said, yep, it's been growing ever since.
Yeah. So I'll tell you how I got my first book published. I was working with a guy to help him find authors for computer books. And, this was back in the 1980s. So, we were looking for programmers for basic and things like that. And I was pretty good at finding the authors for these people, but there was one topic that I could not find a suitable author for, and it was on artificial intelligence, which was, that was a long time ago for AI.
Mm-hmm.
And so the guy I was working for said, "All right, Van Horn,
Mm-hmm.
enough time. You got to write it yourself." And I said, "I don't know anything about that." And so I had to
Mm-hmm.
do all the research and interview people and all that and write the dang book. And it got published and it did pretty well. So, that was kind of got me going on the book publishing thing.
Like, while on the topic of AI, like, what are your thoughts on the usage of AI for authors in general?
Well, of course, authors are talking about this all the time, and they're afraid that they're going to get replaced by some robot. And the phrase that has come up that I hear time and time again is use AI as a tool, but not to create your work. Use it to create an
Mm-hmm.
image, and then you take that idea for the image and make it your own image. Use it to generate ideas, and then you take that and develop your own ideas. But don't rely on AI to turn out a finished product, because number one, people will recognize it and they won't want to have anything to do with you. And number two, it's soul deadening to do that.
Oh, for sure, agree with you on that. And I also believe too, with just the artificial intelligence, it could cause for lazy writing. Not from everyone, but what I mean by that is, some people will use AI as a way to write it all for them, and they do nothing else for it, and they don't cross check it, they don't check it, and pose it as if it was their own work, and that's not what I suggest for anybody to do. I highly encourage anybody, if they're going to use AI for whatever their tool is, to not let AI spit out everything on your behalf, but
Yeah.
let it generate something, and then you go back. Maybe even if they spit out something, you go back and you edit it in a way that still sounds like your voice, that still captures it, because not everybody's proficient at writing, so everybody can use help with something. but to allow it to completely be your voice is not something that I condone. I would highly recommend it. That use the AI software in a way that it can help you better yourself as a writer, and give you ideas, like shoot out some ideas for you to get creative. But that's a different topic. But I agree. Like, AI there is a benefit to it for sure. Now, to kind of pivot on to another topic, when we were talking earlier about self publishing and trad publishing, and why you left the trad published world and you went to the self published world. But for those who are a bit more on the fence about, they're at the start of their writing career and they're like, do I want to do trad published or do I want to do self published? Like, what's your advice for them to make a determining, for them to make a decision?
There's no definite answer to that. I think reason people want to do work with a traditional publisher is they say, hey, I'm a writer, but I don't know how to market. So I'll let the publisher do that. But, the publishers these days are not big marketers. They want you to market your own book even after they publish it. And so they demand that you have a
Yep.
big list of sign-ups and that you have your blog and you have your website and all of that. So you're going to end up doing a lot of that marketing yourself anyway, and you get paid a lot less for every book that's sold than if you self-publish it. So, I'm biased.
Right.
You can tell, but I work with people that insist on going through a traditional publisher, and it works for them. And they have their own reasons. I think it still seems to have a little bit of I don't know, prestige, but the recent advances in self-publishing produce a book that's just as good as what any publisher can do.
Oh yeah, no, agreed. And even to kind of bounce off of what you were just saying, that I think it always comes down to like the message. I think when it goes the trad published route, or even if a person goes and gets independently published, and it's not them doing it on their own, there's still room for you losing some sort, not just losing control, but losing parts of your voice. Because once it goes through the editing process, once the copy editor does their thing, and you get back a whole piece of a project that may not be something that you even wrote, or it may not sound like anything that you wrote. And this is quote unquote an industry standard, and so this is what we're going to push, and it almost detracts from your voice. So there was you probably did yourself some justice, sir, with deciding after they decided, we're not going to go through with the sequel. So you got to either do something else or that's it. And you say, no, I really want to write this story. And you had the tools, you knew what to do, and you found much success from that. Speaking of success, doing self-publishing, how successful has it been for you with marketing your books and being able to put yourself out there? What are some stories that you have behind that?
Well, let me say this. I'll never get rich of the royalties of writing books. So the way that it has paid off for me is, since I'm basically, like I say, I advise small business owners. And so I'm doing a workshop.
Mm-hmm.
I stand up in front. People there, that by buying into the workshop, they get my workbook, and I've got my other books there. And so what happens is I sold most of the books when I was standing up talking with groups of people. And that had the additional benefit is I was always looking for more consulting clients. And so out of every workshop that I would give, I would figure on getting one or two people that wanted to work with me. Well, that was where the real money came in. I had consulting clients that I met back in the 1990s that I'm still working with, so they saw my book. They worked with me. 20 years later, they're still working with me. I mean, that's a real payoff for selling a book.
That, and it also speaks volumes on how important it is to foster genuine and real relationships too, because this is all a team. It's a team sport, even though the writing itself is, it's you against the paper, or it's you on a keyboard, or wherever the person is writing their book. It's you and that. But the team behind the person can help. I've had the same editor. I only have one editor who's really who's strong in the developmental editing piece and copy editing. And I know it's hey, it's good to have a copy editor and a developmental editor to do both. But when you have one that knows how to do both, it's good. But pretty much, I'm bringing that up because it speaks volumes to being able to trust your partner. You've been in partnership with whom you were speaking of since the '90s. Still to this day, are still in contact with that person. And so to bounce off of that, how important is it, in your opinion, sir, to have like to foster strong relationships that could really help you propel as an author?
Well, I'll tell you what I rely on. I've always had a critique group where it's a group of authors, small group, like maybe 5 or 6 people who meet every month, and we share pieces of our work, and others give feedback. So, the people get to know you, they get to know your writing. There'll be some people in there who are really good at
Hmm.
correcting your grammar and punctuation, and there are others who are more like developmental editors, and they'll give you overview stuff. So it's a mix of people in there. And the other thing is, you damn well know that if you got to have this thing done by the second Saturday of the month, you're going to keep on schedule. You're not going to fall behind because these other people are depending on you to get your
Hmm.
work out to them. So I've been doing that for
Right.
many years, and I'll tell you that is just a great tool.
For sure. Now, even as a self-published author, right? Because with the trad published route, there's deadlines that the people in the publishing house like make. But for you, it sounds like you do that for yourself. But how important is it to structure your from writing, consistently writing, to going through all the other processes that go with being creating a book and pushing it out there? How important is it to stay on track?
Well, that is the big challenge, I must confess, because you've got to
Yeah.
a website, you've got to do a blog, you've got to build people on your list and all of those things. And really, I would just rather sit here and write. But all of these other things have to be done. You just can't let them fall by the wayside. And so finding the balance, it can be tough because I see for myself, I get going down one thing, I'm really focused on it. And then there's this other thing over here, and I'm kind of letting it go till tomorrow or something. But then I start focusing on
Mhm.
that, and this part over here starts getting left behind. So it's a continual
Mhm.
struggle to figure out how to get those things to be balanced.
I see. So it's just you just kind of figure it out as you go, right?
Yeah, what else can you do?
For sure. For sure. I think like life is just way too short to to stress over things that doesn't necessarily need to be stressed over. But you know, I think what's interesting about your style, sir, is that you have two completely different worlds of what you write about.
Yeah.
Business was one, and then science fiction. I particularly have an interest in science fiction, though I've never written in it as well. So I'm curious to hear from you. I'm looking more so for inspiration, so I can write my own. But like for you, how has it been for you in writing science fiction?
All right. Well, I'm not sure I'm a good example in that for the following reason. Clear back in the 1980s, I started writing science fiction, but I never finished anything. And why didn't I finish anything?
Oh,
Because I was writing business books. And so I
mm,
was writing business books for years up until, I don't know, about 10 years ago, I guess. And I had all of these
mm,
unfinished stories. And so I said, okay, if I'm ever going to get these things done in this lifetime, I got to do it now. And so, uh,
right.
you know, I just kind of changed my focus and said my first focus is going to be on writing the science fiction, and it worked. Now I've got 3 books published in that area. Can I hold up a
That's
cover?
awesome.
So this is
Yes, yes, please. I was going to ask.
the book 1 of this series of this woman is a singer, and she ends up matching with an alien who's also a singer, and they kind of help each other recapture their passion
That's
for singing, and she ends up in some amazing space adventures also. So this is the first of a 3-book series.
wow. And what's the title of that?
Aliens crashed
Just
in my
for
backyard.
those of
I'm sorry?
aliens crashed in my backyard.
Yes.
Okay, I was asking because just for those who are listening to the audio only portion of
Ah,
this, definitely want them to be able to tune in to that book as well. So, okay, so where do you get your ideas from when it comes to science fiction?
boy, oh boy, they just come. I just, I'll wake up in the middle of the night and I have this kind of image in my mind, and that becomes the core of a story. And it's not like that's the beginning or the end of the story. It might be right in the middle. And so I have to go work both ways from that image and just see how are we going to get to that image, and then from there, where are we going to go? And I've done
Yeah.
different stories that way.
You know, what I love most about sci-fi, like, and every genre has something that's like unique and special about it. I grew up on science fiction, and I guess I should say that loosely because I'm thinking Star Wars, but Star Wars is more like sci-fi fantasy, but Star Trek is probably more accurate to science fiction. But nonetheless, like this, the idea of sci-fi and the aliens and the worlds and how they get it. But your idea of a speed date, right? Uh, an alien and this lady is they're singers and they get matched up, and it sounds like a fun, enjoyable story. Are you currently working on any science fiction books right now?
Yes. So I told you I have a trilogy. And so right now I'm working on book 4 of the trilogy. And the title of that is Alien Invasion, There Goes the Neighborhood. And so this is a story about aliens who come to visit Earth not as uh, hostile conquerors, but as tourists. And they want to see all
Hmm.
the unique things on Earth. And but even so, they're very disruptive. And so I had that idea, and I had to kind of build that into the end of my trilogy, and have the same
Yeah,
heroine be part of that. And so I'm just about finished with that book. It's not quite done yet.
yeah. How do you know when you're finished with the book? Like, how do you know this is? Yeah, that's it. That's the end of the story. How do you know that?
Well, it doesn't always happen immediately. I will say that this trilogy, I started out to write it as a short story, and I
Hmm.
showed it to people, and they said, "Well, Mike, this you didn't really explain this very well. What actually happened here at the end?" So I had to write it out a little more, and then I wrote so much. I said, "Gee, this is
Hmm.
too much for one book. I got to have 2 books out of this." Well, before long, I had three
Hmm.
books out of it. So you know,
Yeah.
the endings can they can proliferate if you're not careful.
For sure, for sure. And so I guess the biggest thing is when it comes to like just in writing in general is like knowing when enough is enough, right? Meaning that I should probably move on from this. But you've written not just
Yeah.
one series, but you've written multiple series, like a series in business and now series in science fiction. How different do you think when you're writing a business book versus a science fiction book? And I guess the obvious one is, yeah, they're completely different worlds, but like I'm curious to hear you specifically.
So a business book is more sitting down and writing and looking up, doing a little research online and looking at your notes and editing. Um, Whereas science fiction, I might be out walking in the hills, dictating dialogue and all of that, and then have that transcribed, and then that becomes a part of the book. So it's kind of two different styles of writing.
Yeah. And I think what else is special about you, Mike, is the idea that you do multiple genres, right? I know we've been mentioning science fiction and business, but it really should be noted that the industry really, it's like frowned upon, unfortunately, and I don't agree with this logic, but it's like frowned upon for an author to do multiple genres. How can an author be truly marketable and when they do multiple? I don't agree with that logic because I write in multiple genres as well, and I think that was something that I learned from several authors who were trap publishers that no, we want you to specifically only focus on this genre. Even if you are proficient and you have knowledge in this area, i.e., right, science fiction. No, we want you to just do business books. So, is it freeing in a sense when you know you have complete control of the stories that you can tell?
Well, yes, but even so, there are challenges. For example, if you sell your self published work on Amazon, you have an author page. And so I have an author page, and the way it was starting, it would be a mix of my science fiction and business books, which just seems useless to me. And so, what I have, as I'm republishing these new workbooks, I am setting up a new author page on Amazon. So I have one for science fiction, one for business, but you can't use the same name. So I'm Mike Van Horn on the science fiction, and I'm Michael Van Horn on the biz books.
That's interesting. Is there a particular reason as to why even the slight change with your pen names on there?
Well, you'd have to ask Mr. Amazon that, but I think it's to
Oh,
avoid confusion of the readers when they're doing a search to find a particular topic or looking for your name. Maybe it just reduces the confusion for those people. And I guess you just can't have two different author
I
pages
see.
of the same name.
Oh, that makes sense too. Yeah, I didn't think about that because I remember hearing when I remember I was doing. I was in some writing based Zoom call or something like that. I don't even know how I found it. Maybe it was through Eventbrite, but I remember I attended it, and one of the things they were saying was that about if you're going to write in different genres, you should have a different pen name. And I thought that okay, I don't know if I need to do it to that extent. I guess it depends because I write children's books, but I also do poetry. But I can imagine if I wrote children's books and then I wrote an erotica, that would be applicable. I would like completely
Yeah,
different pen name. You don't want any
indeed.
affiliation if you do children's books versus erotica. But like the distinction between like just writing, fiction books that can kind of all correlate one and the same, at least in the world of self-publishing, as long as you know how to market yourself, that may all that be is required. But it's so different and for everyone in their individuality that there's no real clear cut way to do it. If it works for the person, then it just completely works. And it sounds like you found a balance between your science fiction world and also your business world. Is that a correct assumption?
Yes. Well, see, they have different markets. And so I have a website for each one, and and a blog for each one. So, that then I know I'm kind of going down two different channels. It's like having two different businesses, really.
Right. How do you right? And I'll just ask you a couple more questions, and I'll let you go. So I don't want to hold you up too much longer, sir. So thank you for your time up to this point. But how do you like when it comes to like a marketing campaign, right? You can shorten this answer if you'd like, sir. But like when it comes to a marketing campaign for your business books versus your science fiction, and you want to push it out there for people to see, what is your strategy for marketing your business books versus marketing your science fiction books?
Well, I'll tell you what I don't like to do. I'm not good at like Facebook ads or Amazon ads or things like or SEO stuff. So what I like to do is exactly what we're doing now. I would rather talk with people because I've always been a talker, and also write blog posts. So that basically is my strategy for both of them.
Oh, good. And see, that works for you too. And so, one thing I want to point out that's really important for for the viewing audience is that so Mike, in the way that he does his, it may not work for you, but give it a shot anyway to see if it works for you. Because I think many people get caught into this idea of there's so many different ways to do it. I don't even know which one to do. I don't think I should do any of them, or maybe I should stick to one. And I encourage just try as many different ones. You know, Mike, he has tried a variety of different tactics, and he knows that I don't really gel well with like Amazon ads or Facebook ads. I'd much rather put myself in front of the camera or through the audio airways and go that way. And I
Yeah.
think there's more of a connection in that approach too.
Because a lot of people just don't want to fiddle with all of those things that, and you're having to pay money every time you do it, and you don't see any return. And yeah, it drives you crazy. So, and you got to figure out what your own personal style is. There's some people that would be scared, like being interviewed by you. But for me, this is just a natural thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah, but this is a great conversation too. You know, like being able to talk sensibly, and it's always cool when I can like meet different people, right? Just even with this platform and creating it, and being able to have opportunities of talking to people from all walks of life with such different backgrounds, and have conversations like we're just talking. Like, even though granted this is a quote unquote interview, it just feels more like a conversation with questions involved, like it's an interview. And so this has been really well. So I'll ask you. Let's see. Just two more questions, and then that'll
Okay.
be it. Um, so last, I know you're working on your fourth book in your trilogy, but are you working on any other business books?
Well, like I say, I have this series I'm working on, and I've got five of them published so far, and but I have a total of 20 of them. So if assuming I can get through them all, I'll have a series of 20 published. I don't know, by later this year, I hope, or early next year. That seems
Okay,
pretty.
okay, cool. So you got your gold set.
Yeah, I do. It seems pretty. Uh, I don't know, like I'm trying to do too much, but since these are rewrites, it's not quite as big a deal as if I was starting from zero on them.
Right. No, that makes sense too. Okay, and so it sounds like just in general that you have a genuine love for what you do. Now, how important is it to love the process when it comes to creating these stories?
Oh boy, if you don't love it, you better get a different line of work because it's hard work. You've got to like what you're doing. You've got to like your own writing. I can go back and read one of
Yeah, that.
my former stories, and I say, "Wow, that's actually pretty good. I like that story." And I think that's pretty important when you're
Yeah.
doing this.
No, for sure, for sure. You being able to because it'll register, especially like in the way that it's written. It'll show if there was like a lack of care. And sometimes it's hard to gauge like the experience of a writer. Well, maybe not always, but for someone who's inexperienced at capturing, if this is an inexperienced writer, it might be hard to gauge it. But like the writer themselves, they know if they were into it or not, and it can become like pulling teeth, and it becomes a bit of like of a stretch and maybe even stressful for the person, and it's not really worth it in the end if it didn't have to be that way. So I agree with you, Mike, about you need to love it because there's so much that goes into it. And like I know we were just scratching the surface and talking about like just the process of how you do things and how you found it, but there's so much to so many layers to to just the business of being an author, a published author, between writing the book and getting it edited, and if you want a quality book, that is, versus if you just want, hey, I wrote it and put it out there, then there's something for that too. You just write it and put it on Amazon, and you are still a published author. It may not be quality, but you still fall into that category. But if you want it for real, you and there's so much to it, right, Mike? Like between writing it and getting it published, and then doing the networking pieces of it, and you've been doing how long exactly, right? You mentioned the 90s, but how long before you found true success did it take you as an author?
Well, so my first book was published, I think, in 1985, and so that's 40 years ago. And it had some success. I didn't have to do much for it. It was published by Bantam, and the Library Association picked it up. And so back in those days, publishers did a lot more marketing for you. They don't do that anymore. But so, I felt that that was successful. I was happy with the way that went. I got a paid trip to Australia to speak on that topic. Now that was a lot of fun. I enjoyed that a lot.
Nah,
So starting then,
there's
I
a
mean,
there's a real perk.
so I would say starting then, I've been trying to build my businesses around the books I was writing, and so the success came from the spin-offs from the books, like finding people or companies to work with.
Oh, that's awesome. That is awesome. And so at the end of it all, you just need to love it, one, and you need to commit to the idea, and and just have fun with it, because it sounds like you've been having a good time
Yes, I have.
for the most part.
I love my work. When you love your
Yes,
work,
sir.
there's no
So
reason to
it
work
close
hard.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Any closing remarks, like any like last minute messages or anything that you would like to say to the younger generation of writers and creators wanting to step into this role as an author?
Yes, there is one thing that is kind of my byword. When creativity happens, capture it right now. Not in 5 minutes, but right now, because it'll disappear. You just got to capture your ideas as soon as they come up and build on them later.
Oh, I love that. So capturing it mean, are you suggesting, hey, you know what? Let me just write it down. Let me put it in my phone, or capture it in a way that they can remember it.
Write it down or record it. You can't, you say, oh, I'm not going to remember that in the morning. At 3 a.m., I had this wonderful idea. Well, I'll get up about 8 and write it down. It'll be gone. You've got to get up and mutter into your recorder right then in the middle of the night and see if you can avoid waking up your partner.
Yeah, no, tell me about it. But I like that. Pretty much it's like lightning in a bottle. That's a buddy of mine had told me that in the past. It was lightning in a bottle. You just gotta capture it right then and there. And you're saying the same thing. Capture it right then and there, or to go away. Some of the best ideas happen spontaneous on like a random walk, or driving to work, or eating dinner by
Yeah,
yourself on a Sunday night. I don't know, but like it happens. So I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. And is there are you open to sharing like your website or your any
sure.
social media handles? Would you like to promote any of that before I let you go?
Yes, let me give you the website addresses for one of the science fiction is galaxytalltales.com.
Okay.
Galaxytalltales.com. And the business books is smallbusinessworkbooks.com.
Perfection. And
Smallbusinessworkbooks.com.
what I'll do to smallbusinessworkbooks.com. Perfect. And sorry, I should have mentioned this earlier that there was a slight delay. So if it sounded like I was cutting you off, I didn't mean to do you like that. But excuse
I
me.
understand.
Yes, sir. But okay, so thank you. So what I will do is I will take that information, both websites you provided, and I will make sure I link it in the description of this video and of the audio recording, so people can just simply click on it and go and peruse it that way and check out your work. So, well, hey, Mike, man, it's been such a pleasure, and I'm so
Likewise.
grateful that Jenny linked this up. Yes, sir. I can't wait for her to check out this episode, and I can't wait to see what more opportunities come from for you, sir, out of this, and for myself, and seeing how we can just continue to stay in touch. And I'm looking forward to that. To your, I would like to read your sci-fi books, especially draw some inspiration as well. And I'm looking forward to just staying in contact with you. And thank you again for your time.
You're welcome. Let me finish by saying one thing off the record. You're saying that you're in the military up near Seattle. Many, many years ago, I
Yes,
was in
sir.
training at Fort Lewis in Tacoma.
Oh, no way.
So I spent a year up
Were
there.
you were in the service?
Yeah, I was drafted back in the Vietnam era.
Wow. That is wow. Wow. And how did you escape that? How did you get out
Well,
of that?
I'll tell you how I escaped it. When everybody else was being sent to Vietnam, I was sent to Heidelberg, Germany, to work in the post office. And so I had about the softest job in the army, I think.
That's awesome. Hey, hey, it was a blessing in disguise. But
Yeah.
that's wild. Yeah, Fort Lewis, huh? That is about 15 minutes from where I am currently.
Hmm. So,
Small world. What a small world.
well, all right. I guess we're drawing to a close.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, we are. Sorry, I'm just stuck on that idea. Like, wow, it's just crazy how small the world is, and where you've blessed this area that I am close by right now. So,
Yeah.
hey,
You know,
well, thank you for your time that you served in the military. And
thank you. And likewise to you. Uh, and let me say, I would just be delighted to work with you in any future, in any way in the future.
oh, absolutely. No, no, this is not the end of it. No, no, this is definitely not the end of it. I need to talk to Jenny as well. And whenever I get back to San Francisco, hopefully it's going to be sometime in February, and hopefully I can be able to like meet you in person. But I certainly would like to do this again, and we'll have you back on and maybe speak more about some additional things that we weren't able to capture in the like 45 minutes of this episode, which
Yeah.
thank you for staying on for so long. I know we said 20 to 30 minutes, but it was such a good conversation. It just naturally came out to like 45 minutes.
That's fine with me. Is it okay
Yes, sir.
when this comes out? Can I? Is it okay with you if I use that link in other things, like I put it in my blog, I put it on Facebook, or anything like that? Okay, good. Just wanted to
Hmm.
check.
Oh, absolutely. Yep, you can use it. Yes, sir. You can use it to whatever you would like to use it for. I'm more than happy. I'll give you the direct link to it as well. The only thing I won't be able to do is like give you the file, because the file will probably be like 20 to
Oh,
30
that's fine.
gigabytes because this is going to be uploaded. Upload, yeah. So okay, but yep, I got you, sir.
Okay. All right. All right. Oh,
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you all so much. Yes, sir. Thank you all so much for taking the time out of your day to tune in to today's episode. You all take care, and we will catch you next time.